Hi, Gemini. We're going to do a 3-card reading today. It's connected to my... Ooh, I'm not going to take that, but it's connected to my container about deep honesty. So we're going to be doing a 3-card pull that is connected to the Tethered One, or the Hanged One, or suspension, whatever you prefer to call it. We're going to focus on the first card being about what is holding you in that kind of Hanged One space. It's holding Gemini right now. Okay, Gemini. Let's see what's happening. Oh, we got 2. Ooh, damn. Gemini. Wow. Okay. Wow. I think we're actually going to take this. So Judgment technically came out first. We're going to say Judgment is what's holding you. And we're going to say the Tower is the second card that we're pulling for the spread, which is what is changing perspective. I do really love this Tower card, honestly, though. Can you see that very well? It's very good, right? Okay. Okay. Whew. Coming in hot, Gemini. Okay. So what truth is emerging here for Gemini through this Tower perspective shift? Ooh. The 5 of Pentacles. Okay, Gemini. Interesting. Okay. So I'm just going to go. This feels like very direct. It feels like Judgment. Okay, so you have 2 big players, right? 2 big major arcana cards coming out first. Judgment, in terms of what's holding you, feels like this kind of, I mean, obviously, Judgment feels like an awakening. Like, it's a big realization. So maybe you are just coming into knowing something, or maybe you're in the process of like letting yourself know something. And that is kind of the emotional space you're in. That is, I also love that, I mean, in terms of you being like held by this, in this card, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, but in this card, there's like a person here inside of this like vortex or whatever. And I feel like that's very fitting for you in this moment from what these cards are saying. Like there is something very powerful that you are coming into knowing about. And it may also feel like it's like this external force that's happening to you. And it's bringing forward this like eye-opening moment of, oh my God, like I had no idea this is how it was, or I had no idea this is what was happening. It feels very kind of shocking, but there's also like, I think in Judgment, there's also kind of, in that shock, there's also like an awe or a wonder of like, this is what could be true. Like this is what is true. You're understanding something in like a much bigger way. And that's like, you're held in that process. That's like what is the structure that is kind of holding you in this suspended moment, which is big. So then we come into the Tower. So the Tower as like what your perspective. So in general, I guess I should just say, like, first of all, I feel like the Tower often is a card that a lot of people fear. Just like in this one, it's often depicted as like a building that's like crumbling to the ground and people are usually falling out of it, and it can feel like a very intense card to receive. I do feel like this one's fairly intense, although it is beautiful too. Oh, that's nice. But what I'm seeing in this card right now, which is maybe part of the perspective shift, is like, so the card that comes after the Tower is the Star. And it feels very much like here, this is the star that is somehow like coming out of the destruction of this tower building. And I mean, the Tower is like the ultimate perspective shift. It's just true. So it feels really obvious, important, needed that you would be shifting your perspective. But it is also interesting to think about how the Tower, which is innately a perspective shift, is also, you are also shifting your perspective about how that happens, is what I'm seeing. Like, you're in this kind of awakening moment, which is allowing you to see things in a totally new perspective. And the Tower, which I think maybe, I'm assuming you maybe have felt previously as being something very intense, very burn it to the ground, very like dramatic and wild and overwhelming and out of control. It might be that now you're starting to understand that the Tower is part of the cycle. It's not something to be feared, but it is something that is needed. Just like you can't create without destruction. You can't have, all of the other beautiful cards in the major arcana, whether that be like the Lovers or, the Sun or whatever is your favorite major arcana card. You can't have that experience without the Tower. I mean, especially if we're talking about the Sun, because the Sun essentially comes, if we're talking about kind of a linear process, the Sun comes after the Tower. The Star comes after the Tower. And for me, I think that just like the Devil, which is just before the Tower, is about all of the ways that we kind of gaslight ourselves or allow others to lie to us about what is not true to our own souls, is not true about who we are or how we experience ourselves in the world. The Tower is like the crumbling of that facade, is the destruction of what is not, it has never been us. And that destruction of what is not us has then allowed us to step forward in a much more authentic and tender and compassionate way, which is the Star. And so as you're kind of like learning, exploring, understanding the Tower in this different way, then the truth starts to emerge of the Five of Pentacles, which to me has kind of a double meaning here. So the Five of Pentacles as the truth feels like you're understanding all the ways that like the facade or the way that you had been engaging with the world previously was not fulfilling, was not actually a way for you to feel spiritually resourced, to feel materially resourced, to feel emotionally or relationally or psychologically, any of those things. What was happening before needed to be destroyed. The other thing about the Five of Pentacles, which this is just from my personal deck, but I do love the like story of this, which is in my personal deck that I use, the Five of Discs talks about the inner experience of being resourced and how we can have that regardless of what's happening externally. That when we are internally aware of all of the ways that we can take care of ourselves, all of the ways that we have support of the universe, of our guides, of our ancestors, internally how we are able to handle our own emotions, care for ourselves. When we know we have those internal resources, the external world is very different to us. We might not have those external resources in alignment with what we have internally, but they don't feel the same when we are internally resourced. We might not feel the same kind of tension around not having what we need externally. We're still going to need it. But there's a different kind of relationship we can have when we have that internal kind of knowing and trust with ourselves that can help us move in the world in a very different way to get those needs met. And so it feels like whatever this Tower experience, like perspective shift of a perspective shift is, of you understanding that maybe the Tower can be soft. What would it look like if the Tower was a gentle burning away, if it was the shedding of something, the loss of something through like passion, right? Because fire in the tarot is also passion. So if we are burning through something that is old that we no longer are passionate about, think about the freedom that comes from that. Think about the pleasure that can come from that. Think about the liberation and the ways that we can create a world for ourselves and others that is so much more open when we're burning things away that we are not with our own passion. The Tower can really become something beautiful instead of something scary. And you were in that kind of perspective shift. And you, Gemini, are like the best person for it, right? Because of how you can see the many, many perspectives. How you can hold so many truths. Gemini. This is like kind of a big moment for you, is what it feels like. There's something really strong coming through that you're understanding in this deeper way that's kind of shifting perspective all across the board and allowing you to find and understand those internal resources that you have always had, that you are cultivating even now. Wow, Gemini. Okay. Thank you for this. Thank you for this. And take really good care, please. Really good care. Also, maybe this is like the most fun ride you've ever had. I have no idea. I mean, there's nothing necessarily here saying that you're deeply sad or like deeply hurt. It just is like transformative. It just feels like you're transforming in some kind of very deep internal way that is, I think, going to revolutionize the rest of your life at some point soon. So, wow, Gemini. Oh, okay, that's it. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, Libra. I'm going to do a 3-card spread for you. It's connected to the Deep Honesty container that is in the Feral Unfolding Substack. It's exploring the Tethered One or the Hanged One energy from the tarot. So I made a little spread for us to explore. So the first card is going to be what is holding you currently in this kind of Tethered One energy. Okay. Second card is going to be, I didn't see the first card, so I'll show you in a bit, but the second card is going to be what perspective, what perspective is shifting? The sun is what your perspective is shifting. I don't know if you can see that very well. Kind of. The sun is what's you're shifting perspective around. Interesting. Okay, so the last one is what truth is emerging for Libra. Truth is emerging for Libra right now. Okay. Oop, there we go. Whoop. Oh. Okay, Libra. Wow, this is a big one. It is the Tower. This is the truth that is emerging. So, let's see what's holding you as these big things are coming forward. Oh, it is the Queen of Pentacles that's holding you. That's beautiful. Okay. Okay. Wow, Libra. So it feels like to me that your inner experience of nurturing and kind of like creating the reality that cares for you is really what's holding you in this place currently. So the parts of you that, understand what you need externally in order to feel safe and cared for are really keeping you kind of steady in this space. So maybe that's that you already have the kind of like routines set up for you that feel good. Or maybe you're just comfortable with like the situation that you're in externally. Or maybe you just know what it is that you do need, even if those things are not actually in place currently. But there's something about that kind of comfort that is really keeping you steady here. And I feel like this is like a container or like a gentle hug, some type of like physical experience that is kind of holding you instead of like rope, or, you know what I mean? Something that's more supportive versus like restrictive, it feels like is what's happening for you in this kind of hold experience. And through that kind of like care and nurturing, that kind of safe experience, comfort experience, you're being able to kind of shift the perspective you have about the sun. So the sun for me is about how we express ourselves, how we're fully seen, how we are exposed sometimes when we are seen, kind of the stories and narratives and experiences we have around being both, being seen and unseen, being witnessed, but also being judged. Like those kind of things can come up when we are in the bright light of the sun. The sun also feels like kind of a space of authenticity and self-expression, self-knowing, that is like in your full being, about how you are, how you exist in the world. And so it really feels like your perspective of this is changing in some way that either, I mean, I would say that is allowing you to be more yourself, allowing you to come more into your own authenticity and expression with less fear about what that could mean. Interestingly, though, like the truth that's emerging is this tower, which I find interesting because I think that towers are often seen as like very disruptive, as maybe not places where we are our most authentic selves, places of a bit of chaos and a bit of intensity. And at the same time, I think that when we are in this kind of authenticity that the sun brings, we can hold a tower moment or a tower experience of something crumbling or falling apart with much more grace, because we have that internal kind of resourced experience of like, I can trust myself here. That if we haven't had that kind of connection to our own ways of being, our own like authenticity, then a tower moment is much more dysregulating. It's much more harmful. So being able to come face to face with the truth of a tower, that something's not working, that something is dissolving, that something is falling apart, is going to be much easier when we have the perspective of the sun on our side. When we're able to see the bigger picture, right? I mean, we're also, if we're talking about the sun itself, like the sun is in the sky, the sun sees the biggest picture of Earth that is possible. You know, maybe not possible, but the sun is seeing the biggest experience of Earth. And so that kind of wider perspective is deeply helpful when we're talking about something crashing and burning, right? The sun is also fire. The sun is connected to our passion, connected to how, you know, our soul exists, how we want to be expressing ourselves. And the tower is up in flames, right? The tower is burning, at least in this depiction, if not many. And that kind of burning can be a burning away from passion, burning with passion, burning through whatever facade or old ways we had that kind of blocked our sun from coming out. Oh, that's a really interesting image that just came up. The image of like, as though like you have kind of an exterior mask or like costume that you wear, and that like when you are embodying your truth or like your sun expression, that light comes from the inside and expands out. And so that facade or costume or mask or whatever crumbles. So in some ways, like the tower is you, meaning the tower is all the things, all the ways that you hide yourself falling apart so that your sun, your direct, authentic expression can burn forward, can be the light. I mean, I think that's also in this tower, there's this like star moment up here, and the sun is a star, you know, it's a different like kind of energy than the star energy in tarot, but it's definitely part of this. And this kind of experience of breaking out of the old ways of being, breaking away from the things that really kept you hidden, and letting yourself be seen, letting yourself be allowed to be seen, really feels like this kind of emerging truth of like, you have the power to do that, Libra. You have the power to let yourself be shown, to let this other older stuff fall away, so that you can be fully present, fully witnessed, fully expressed. And maybe that's going to take time, right? But it's this, I think it's the perspective of like, that could be you. I think sometimes, I don't know, for me, sometimes with the major arcana, I'm like, oh, I've definitely seen other people do that. And I kind of like stay in that state of like, oh, other people have. I've witnessed that in other people. But this like sun kind of perspective shift feels very much like you are embodying and understanding in a physical way what it means for you to be a clear expression of yourself, an open flowing expression of yourself in like ways that light you up. And that kind of lighting up is really where this tower wisdom is coming in, of like, the truth is, when you light yourself up, when you let yourself be at your full brightest with passion and whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you're breaking out of old patterns that have kept you hidden from people who need to see you, Libra. There are people who need to see you. And you're one of those people. And it really feels like you're coming into an understanding of that through this process. That's really beautiful. Oh. Thank you, Libra. Thank you for being here, and thank you for this beautiful reading. Yeah. And I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hi, Aquarius. Okay, we're going to pull some cards. We're going to do a 3-card spread that has one card. The first card, has 3 cards, obviously. The first card is about what is holding you as you are being suspended or tethered with this deep honesty experience. Let's see what that one is first. I'm using the Leblanco Tarot today for you. Oh, Knight of Pentacles. Okay, Aquarius. The second card is going to be what is needing a perspective shift, or what is having a perspective shift while you're in this kind of tethered state. Oh, 10 of Swords. Okay, that's a great thing to have a perspective shift on. Okay. And then lastly, what truth is emerging? What truth is emerging? Aquarius. Okay. Page of Pentacles is what is emerging. Okay, let's stay here for a second. Oh, that's interesting. The Knight of Pentacles and the Page of Pentacles with the 10 of Swords between. Okay. Okay, so what's holding you is this kind of steady movement forward, right? The Knight of Pentacles to me is about like moving towards what your goal is, what your desire is, in like in your physical reality, just making slow steps towards that, right? Like, it's not necessarily like you're running. You might not be able to run. And in that, you are working towards something kind of strategically, methodically. You know where you want to go. You're trying to get there, right? And it's in that kind of steady process, that steady movement, that you are being held. So it's as though like the journey itself, like it makes me think of like a car ride. Like when you're like, okay, this is going to be like a 4-hour car ride to get to the thing. And like, there's the thing that you really want to do at the end of that 4 hours, or maybe you don't want to do, but you have to do whatever. There's like the goal that you have of getting there, and you're being held kind of in that transportation moment, right? It's those 4 hours of like figuring out how to get there, moving with it to get there. But like there's a lot that can happen that can be very rich when you're held in that kind of space. So then the perspective that needs to be shifted is, or that is in the process of being shifted, is the Ten of Swords, which to me is always about the death of old stories, the death of things that we believe about ourselves, the things that really harm us, the things that hurt us the most that we tell ourselves, that those parts of us, those stories in us, those beliefs, those things we tell ourselves dying in some way so that something else can be reborn, so that a new way of knowing ourselves, so that a more true story can emerge. And that can be, like, I think it's a very interesting thing for me to think about how that, which is to me already a perspective shift, is needing a perspective shift. You know, like, maybe it's how you have thought about the Ten of Swords. So like maybe how you have thought, like, what is, I guess the question here, this is the question that I would like you to think about. How have you previously changed your own truths? What are the ways that you have changed the stories, the beliefs, the truths that you hold about yourself? How have you previously changed those? Has it been through a pretty intense, brutal process with yourself? Has it been through maybe avoiding things and not really wanting to change them, and then something very like intense happening that the universe gave you and you having to readjust those stories because you had been avoiding things? Is it that it can't be simple? Is it that it has to be painful? Because, like, I mean, look at the Ten of Swords looks very painful, right? Like, they're kind of classic. There are 10 swords. There's some blood happening too in this one, but, or maybe just some water that's reflecting the blood. But there's definitely like a pain, an emotional pain that can come through with the Ten of Swords. And what would happen if your belief around that pain being necessary could change? What if your perspective about that shifted and the Ten of Swords was actually depicted as something like taking a shirt off, like taking your coat off? What if it was something that was much more like easeful, helpful, felt like a shedding versus felt like a stabbing? And that can be painful too, to shed things, but there is a perspective shift that can change how you engage with that change of perspective, right? And it feels like when you are able to kind of shift that perspective around how you know to change your own stories, then this Page of Pentacles can emerge. This truth of like, oh yeah, to me it feels, I mean, the Page of Pentacles to me is like quite playful in like a very physical way. I mean, this card is also quite playful in a physical way. There's like, it feels like they're jumping. It feels like they're like kind of tapping this like it's a game. Like there's something happening there for me that feels very like, you know, we're doing this, like we're on the move. We're like actively exploring things, trying to get to the end. Like there's like a lot of energy that feels really like trying something for the first time, doing something for the first time, and not out of like a fearful kind of place of like, oh, I'm going to do this wrong, or I'm going to mess this up, but more out of a like joyful, I'm doing this, like, oh my God, I'm doing this kind of vibe. I mean, because I think especially physically, when we're talking about things that we are doing physically for the first time, we can get that rush of like adrenaline of like, oh my God, I'm doing it. Like, this is what it's like. This is what it feels like. I'm doing it. And I feel like that's something that maybe you're needing more of, because this belief that like how you change your own mind has to be painful is not serving you anymore like that. And when we think about the Knight of Pentacles kind of being the thing that's holding you, it's this steady progression towards something that's allowing you the space to be able to reflect on why you believe that changing your mind has to be painful. Because it doesn't. Because it could be so many other ways. And you get to decide what those ways are. And when you're able to kind of shift that so that, like the Ten of Pentacles maybe feels more alluring, feels more attractive, feels more exciting. I think I said the Ten of Pentacles, but I meant the Ten of Swords. When the Ten of Swords can feel like a pleasure experience, then that's when this Page of Pentacles can move forward and really show you the way towards play and towards lightness and towards being a beginner in a beautiful way, being a beginner in a way that doesn't feel like raw and open and like you just clawed your way through something. It can feel light on your feet. It can feel full of possibility. It can feel like you've done this before because you have done this before. In a lot of ways, the Page of Pentacles to me feels like a physical embodiment of our like child self, of whatever it was that, however we were when we were young, regardless of like if it was like buoyant and playful and silly, even if we came from like our experience as a child was maybe more reserved or quiet, there was still like a newness, a wonder, an awe that experience of being a child offers us. And that is what feels like is coming through with this Page of Pentacles. It's really like you can come back to that kind of magic in yourself instead of feeling like the magic of changing your inner world has to be brutal. It doesn't, Aquarius. It doesn't. Thank you, Aquarius. I feel like this is a really beautiful reading. And I really appreciate you being here. Yeah. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Bye.